Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Freight Break, the flagship podcast of the Broker Carrier Summit, the BCS Freight Network, and your go-to podcast for navigating the logistics and transportation industries. I'm your host, Dan Lindsey, freshly back from Palm Springs at the Food Shippers Conference. It took me 2.5 days to get back from Palm Springs. I probably could have driven it faster, but apologies on having to postpone this show till this week. That was not expected. I do not want to go into another airport for a very long time. Anyway, I'm your host, Dan Lindsey, and each week we interview some of the incredible people who are making this industry great. I've got a fantastic guest for you today, but before we dive in, I need to say something to the freight brokers. That's right. The freight brokers who are operating out of 52 tabs across 4 monitors, working on 6 different RFPs while sending rate cons, and has 2 carriers on hold while listening to this show. Do yourself a favor and look up TIE TMS. TIE is the next generation TMS that simplifies your workflow through end-to-end automation, saving you hours and hours of manual work each and every week, like those RFPs. Everything from quoting to carrier selection to invoicing, TIE TMS can handle, exponentially boosting your efficiency, which saves you money. And when you save money, you make money. TIE also integrates seamlessly with the tools you already use, tools like load boards, carrier networks, visibility platforms, consolidating everything conveniently into one centralized platform so you're not just jumping between tabs or tools trying to keep all of your stuff straight. And the best part, it was designed specifically for the freight broker in mind. So if you're ready to step up your operations this year, head on over to tiesoftware.com and see how TIE TMS can transform your business. All right, everybody, we got a great show for you today. Before we get started here, I do have a couple of announcements. Again, we are 48 days away from the Broker Carrier Summit in Indianapolis, April 28th to May 2nd, kicking off race month in Indianapolis with the BCS. Super excited to see everybody there. We are already way ahead of pace from our attendance at Fort Worth, and we had 500 people at Fort Worth. I'm looking forward to probably 700 people at Indianapolis. So it's going to be fantastic. We've already sold out one of our hotel blocks. So if you are on the fence, allow me to put a fire under your proverbial behind to get you to sign up before our hotel rooms completely sell out. We have a backup hotel that we put together a few weeks ago just to make sure that we had enough rooms, but those are selling quickly as well. Also, if you have not looked up the BCS Freight Network, do so today. Go to www.bcsfreightnetwork.com. You can take advantage of all of the content that we are putting out, including this podcast, members-only content from previous summits. We also have the ability for you to network with people who have attended the BCS in the past. You met a broker at the Broker Carrier Summit and you forgot their contact information, become a member of the network and you can look it up in seconds and resume that conversation and get those deals flowing, which gets your trucks moving. All right, everybody. We have a guest for you today, Jonathan Salama with Transfix.io. Hello. There you go.
Hey, how are you?
Okay. Sorry, yeah. My screen glitched out there for a second.
All good.
I'm on rural internet, and so that happens more frequently than I care to admit. So I almost freaked out just now.
That's all right.
So Jonathan Salama is the CEO and co-founder of Transfix. Jonathan, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the freight industry?
Sure. So I come from very far from the U.S. freight market. I'm actually from France, born and raised. I moved to the U.S. For college. I went to University of Miami. From there, I have a computer engineering background, a computer engineering degree with a background in data. I moved early in my career to the West Coast to work at Microsoft. From there, moved to New York and thought I was going to move back to France eventually. I started what I'd like to call my true first job as a computer engineering at a company called Guilt. I met my wife there, who is from Wisconsin and wasn't moving back to France. So that was a decision easily made. From there, stayed in the tech startup ecosystem, building different companies, but eventually wanted to start my own. I was set on doing it, and I didn't know what it was going to be, but call it Lux or Freight Karma. I met Drew, my co-founder, who has the opposite background as I do. He comes from the industry. He's born and raised within the trucking market. And back then, he had this idea for an automated freight broker. There were no term for it back then. There were no Uber Freight. There were no Convoy or any of this. We're sort of the first to decide, like, let's go and automate this industry so we can have better unit economic. Right? Our thesis was, if we can operate as a broker, but have everything automated, we'll end up with like a better business profile. So we set to do that. We did it for almost, or actually exactly 11 years. And in June of last year, or July of last year, we sold our brokerage to NFI. That was a decision that was very strategic for us. We thought our biggest assets is what we've built. And we had this thesis that no broker is buying software from another broker. It's just, we weren't doing it. We weren't about to start doing it.
Because you were building your own proprietary system during this
whole time.
Right?
Yeah. That's when I say we had everything automated, everything was proprietary. We had our own data model that was predicting our rates. We had our own system to schedule our own. We had everything, and we thought that's the key. That's where we see the value we created in the last 10 years. So we wanted to go to market. We found NFI. I can't say enough good thing about NFI. I think you hear all these horror stories, I went through an acquisition. It was so hard, so terrible. I have nothing bad to say. I have nothing. They're all fantastic, all wonderful people. Really still enjoy working with them as our number one customer. But yeah, so we sort of reinvented ourselves in late June, early or late summer, really. And we figured out through talking to customers, through understanding where we are, that there's a real gap in the market to understand your own cost. There are plenty of data companies showing market indexes, the DAT or Sonar, or whichever. They're really good at what they do. They're able to get you an index, but the ability to understand your own cost and your own behavior is not a product that we found out there. And so we decided to start with pricing products to help brokerage win more freight. And now we're here.
Very cool. There's a lot there. So let's take this point by point, because I'm very curious as to how this process rolled out. First of all, where in France are you from?
Paris. Okay. I like to laugh that if you visited Paris, you walk by my old apartment, because we live blocks away from the Eiffel Tower, which was our Times Square. I tried really hard to never go there. It is
too many tourists,
too many people. We tried really hard not to go there.
Yeah, and your wife did not want to move back to France with you.
No, she doesn't speak a word of French. She is from Wisconsin. There were no conversations about moving to France.
Gotcha. Well, let me ask you a question. So you mentioned something. Mm-hmm. You said you didn't know what business you wanted to start at the beginning, but you wanted to start a business. Yeah. Why start a business? Let's start there. Why start a business?
So I did a few startups, and this was 11 years ago, right? The market was the VC world was completely different back then than it is now. And you had all these startups that had momentum that you'd heard about. And I wanted to be part of that ecosystem. But more importantly, I've been part of enough startup that I've seen I like this management style. I really don't like this. really don't like how some startup treats employee. And I just thought, rather than complaining and rather than just join another one and just complain, I'm just going to create my own company, my own culture, and like I'll just do it myself. Right? There were really no other thought in my head at the time. I didn't want to join a bit, like when you're an engineer, you've got, at least back then, you had two paths: the startup world, where great culture, fun, fast pace, rocket ship, all that good stuff, isn't it? Or you get the Big 10 or the really large companies that like move slower, but like you have a completely different impact on your customers. And I didn't see myself fitting in either at the time. And the only solution was create my own company.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think people get wrong a lot of times about entrepreneurs. People think that entrepreneurs just want to go out and make bunches of money, and which is a great thing when you can make it happen. But most entrepreneurs, they start with a problem that they see, right? Like yours, the way that leadership treats their employees, leadership treats their customers. You wanted to solve that problem. That's something that I think a lot of people miss when they talk to entrepreneurs or think about entrepreneurs. That we start with a problem. So when you get into the how you got into the freight world, what problem did you see, or what was brought to you that needed to be solved in the freight world? Because
that's that's great.
Because you started the automation conversation before all these digital brokers came onto the scene. So walk us through that.
It from the beginning in my mind, and I think through my career, I've always been very customer focused. Like creating the best product out there doesn't matter if nobody's using it. And so the first thing that we did was that Drew did, like he brought me into a customer visit, and all I did back then, I barely did any work. I just created a mobile app. I created a map on a screen, and I made a blue dot that followed my phone. That was it. That was literally all I did. One weekend, he wanted to present that to the first customers he was bringing on. That was Barnes and Noble. I was like, there's no way that's going to have an impact. Like Uber existed way long before I built that thing, right? Like it's not like I invented something earth-shattering. But when we went in that room, wait a minute, you can tell me I can track my truck was the reaction was, wait, there is something there. If we can create this much excitement with something this simple, can we push the envelope and create even more product that are going to help shipper, going to help carrier, that are going to create a better ecosystem for all parties involved? In our mind, if we can create a solution where our broker at the time could create enough value for itself, then eventually we could be slightly below market for shippers, slightly higher market for carriers, creating a win-win for all parties. I had a tremendous excitement and passion for creating an environment like that. And to me, that was the problem to be solved, was how do you bring technology that you use in your day-to-day, whether it was Uber or your Facebook or whatever, any user interactions that you're used to in your day-to-day product in your personal life, how do we bring this into the freight market to create a better environment? That was the problem that I thought was incredibly fascinating to do on the back of a real business. It wasn't we weren't putting pictures online or creating a calendar, or this was something tangible. This is something everyone needs. Everything is delivered on trucks, right? I saw a great opportunity to have a massive impact.
Yeah. So as a fellow starter of a brokerage, I started the brokerage in 2020, in March of 2020. Walk me through, I love asking brokerage founders this question. Walk me through the first few years. Hey, Sonny Sharma, good morning. Clovis, California. Wow. All right. Someone's getting more sun than I am here. That's for sure. So, yeah. But walk us through the first few years and some of the challenges that you had as a startup brokerage in 2013.
Well, we had a lot. I think the first one is that AI and trucking were both not sexy in the industry, in the world, or in the VC world for sure. In the for customers, it wasn't something that was particularly interesting, right? Like freight brokers are a commodity, and how do you make yourself stand out, right? And back then, saying AI was not the thing. It certainly is now, but we when we started doing all our pricing predictions, like understanding that the tech behind it doesn't matter and like it's just only the impact on the customers was a personal challenge for me because I'm obviously very focused on the tech itself and on the data science itself. So I had some personal challenge around that. Raising money as we were VC back was challenging, as the trucking market wasn't like as like prominent as it is now. But mostly outside of those two things, like we had a fairly a growth trajectory that I'm pretty proud of. Like we were able to have like really large enterprise customer trusting us early on that carried our growth through the first 10 years. Understanding carrier behavior was a fun challenge, not coming from the industry. And how all the idiosyncrasies of every shipper, every carrier, every truck driver, there is always an exception on every shipment, and just the building of that business was interesting on its own.
Well, that's got to wreak havoc in building out the algorithms and the formulas behind what you guys do. And algorithms rule our lives right now. I have not the first clue on what goes into building an algorithm, but what are specifically to that? Like, how do you overcome the behavioral challenges or behavioral differences that go into, because trucking, it seems like it's a numbers business, and in some ways it is, but in many other ways, trucking is an emotional business. People don't make decisions, whether it's a broker or a carrier, based on rationale as often as they make them on emotion. So how does that factor into how you build the tech out from that?
We couldn't agree more. And there's many ways to answer that question. The first one is that we've been building our data science like for ourselves internally to work with our brokerage, right? And so we had direct feedback when we launch a product that wasn't intuitive enough. Our team was like there to tell us right away, like, I don't know how to use this, or and like there is a need for trust that you build through. I don't want to call it pretty because that sounds too simple, but through a UI that's like where you don't need anybody to walk you through it, where you get all the data that you need, that's comprehensible in a way that makes you trust it. That's something that we've been doing, that we've been nailing down for the last 10 years. But more importantly,
user experience, right?
That's critical. More importantly, something that something that's going to be counterintuitive when I say it, but I promise it'll make sense. We don't actually predict cost. We predict cost, but we don't. So we understand where the market is going. We have a view where the market is going. But then within a broker's data, or back then within our own data, we actually predicted behavior. We didn't predict cost. By that, what I mean is, when, let's say, like, so a lot of brokers come to us and like, oh, I buy really well in this lane, and like, well, let's put that assumption to the test, right? And there's this feeling that we buy well when we have a carrier that's repeatable, but sometimes that carrier anchors that lane in our brain a little bit high, and we make the emotional decision that whenever we are able to get a rate that's below the first carrier's rate, you're buying really well. Meanwhile, the market might be way lower. Or there's the opposite effect when you hit a lane that you've never seen before, your first behavior is to make a lot of calls, talk to a lot of carriers, to try to find that one carrier that's going to give you a great rate. More often than not, it will be a great rate because you've done all this work. It was less emotional because you had less like a less profound understanding of the lane gave you an edge. Not all brokers are the same. Sometimes that's going to backfire. But within your data, we're able to understand your behavior, your pattern, your biases, the idiosyncrasies of your shipper. And that's when we actually predict how you're going to react against the market versus what cost you're going to get. I think that made sense.
Yeah.
But
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So when was the moment, if you can remember, that you realized that there was a need to shift from, running and operating a brokerage to peeling out the technology and running that on its own? What was that? What did that decision look like, and what was the thought behind that?
Yeah, so it was in early 24, Q1 24. We realized like we need another round of fundraising in the next 6 months or 8 months. And so the board and our current investor just asked the question, like, is this what we want to do? Do we want to pour, like, the market's hitting a trough? And we had this conviction that whoever can survive, however long the trough, the market stays low, whoever survives on the other side is going to find itself in a great position. Yes. You're going to have all this, right? Like, and I think it's not rocket science. Everybody believes that. And so we thought, okay, do we want to just get funding to get far along that we're past this trough, or do we want to do something more strategic? Talk to a lot of people, and through this, really realize, like, through a deep, like, look into where we're going, what do we want to do. Even when we found ourselves on the other side, do we want to remain a broker? Do we want to remain to try to compete with the $1 billion plus brokers who have an edge by their sheer scale? And back then, the answer became pretty obvious, I should say, not relevant, but obvious. The tech is the best thing that we've built. We had a great brokerage. Don't get me wrong. I'm very proud of the brokerage that we built and the team that we have. But we thought the tech is not comparable to what's out there, and that's what I'm personally very passionate about. And I had the blessing of the board, and we just went and tried to sell it.
Yeah, well, that's good that you had that situation where you're able to have those conversations, because I know a lot of companies in 23, 24 were having those conversations. Our brokerage was having those conversations. And I remember saying to my partner in late 22, early 23, this is going to be a long trough. We just need to get to where the market starts to recover. And if we can get there, hopefully the low hanging fruit of the brokers who weren't going to make it, past that season would be out of the market and out of our way, and we could take up a little bit more market share. But there was a lot of companies that were having those conversations around that time. So what specifically what problem or what challenge are you solving for brokers now?
Yeah, great. Okay, so that's a great question. In my mind, it's split into three separate function. The first one is the obvious, is the understanding of your cost. But the understanding of your cost gets split into two main buckets. Spot, how do you know how much a freight is tomorrow versus next week? And not what the market is, but what your cost is going to be, right? That's we had 97+% of our freight fully automated. And because spot moves fast, you need to keep up with it. And today you've got a lot of platforms that are able to, like the Happy Robot and all of those that are able to submit rates. You need the intelligence to make sure you can compete in the market, to make sure you're not quoting too high or too low. And that's one problem that we solve. On the other side, we help with RFPs. So we have a workflow tool that helps you manage RFPs. But most importantly, we have that comes with it your cost forecast for the next 15 months or the duration of the RFP. And it's something that like we're particularly proud of, but rather than understanding the market 1 month, like for this whole RFP for 12 months, you're going to price at 1,000. We're able to tell you by months, how is your cost going to vary months over months? And so that you can understand that if you make a decision to go at $1,000, that means that your margin might be very thin on months 1 and months 2. You'll be able to capture more on month 3 and 4. You're taking a risk that on month 5 you might be underwater, but you're making that consciously, because month 6 you'll catch up. And
Yeah.
like, I think
Well,
a lot of
Yeah, that was the most frustrating part of being a freight broker, in my opinion, was filling out these 2,000, 5,000 lane RFPs, 99% of which you personally had not ever ran before. Your company may have
Yep.
ran them, those similar lanes, but there's a lot of math in RFPs, but there's a whole lot of guesswork in RFPs. Anyone who says differently is just absolutely, telling a fib.
It's the art. We called it the art and science, right? Because the science can tell you this is what you should price at, but if you know you're not going to win any freight because that rate is too high, well, you say it's just worthless being the smartest guy in the room without freight. Like you're still losing.
Yeah.
And so like getting that visibility so you can create the right structure and strategy to go after the freight is what makes sense. And if you know you're taking a risk, you understand that on month 3 you lose $1,000 on this lane. You get this. When month 3 happened, you don't need to panic when you're actually losing that $1,000. You just need to make sure that on month 4, when your forecast said like you should be gaining that $1,000 back, that you actually are.
Yeah.
And like that's
So question for you. So how are those conversations with your customers, right? So you have a customer and 3 months in, they're losing their shirt, right? They've been losing their shirt for a couple of months. We talked about earlier, a lot of decisions in freight are not based on rational, logical decision making. They're based on emotions. How do you have those conversations with a broker who's been losing for 2 months on the hope that, in month 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, they're going to regain those losses?
Yeah. So we like to work with us, right? We're ingesting all your data, and to get started, we understand where your buying powers are and what you're going to do. And for all those contracts, we can look and have a very direct conversation on whether that freight is underwater or if it's not. But then we can give you the tools to go renegotiate with the shipper if you need to. And like a lot of shippers, like often like don't like the word like renegotiations. But if you're underwater, you might not have a choice. And on the onset of the RFP, I think it's important to have that conversation and to be crystal clear on like what your strategy is on any given lane. And like, and if your strategy is to like make sure that as long as the shipper gives you the amount of freight that they said they would, you're okay taking on like that risk, then great. Then you can have that conversation with them ahead of time versus waiting for the last minutes and be either the first one to ask for a renegation or the last one, right? You never want to be caught being the first or last to ask for a reprice.
Yeah. You guys are almost like a freight therapist in a way. That's what I'm getting here. We're giving you the tools. We're empowering you to do this. We're encouraging you to have the conversations. Like feel. Every broker needs a therapist.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Tell me how you really feel about this lane.
Exactly.
Yeah. No. I'm sure we provide some comfort. I hope. But yeah, that's a lot of what we do, right? Understanding your data today and your historical data, so we can create like a roadmap for like your growth. Because every broker, there's no one broker we talk to that is just like, yeah, no, I want to chill this year and I don't want to grow. And like everyone is looking for growth, and I think everybody has a different definition for growth. We talk to shippers who want revenue. We talk to shippers who want volume. Sorry, broker, force of habit. Broker who wants revenue. Brokers who want volume. Broker who want margin. Like we're agnostic. We're here to enable your strategy and your goals, and that's what the data does. The data shows you want to be more aggressive to win more revenue. this is the risk that you're taking on margin, but this is the growth path you can take.
Yeah. So talk to me about AI. So you guys were an AI company before AI was AI, or before AI was cool. So
Yeah.
I'm very curious to have your answer on this, because I've been asked this question probably 3 or 4 times in the last week, and I don't know if I have a good cogent answer for it. But what does the future of AI look like in the freight world, given that relationships are so important in the logistics transactions? What is the role of AI, and even more broadly, what is the role of technology, do you think, in the future of the freight market?
I actually don't think it changed for a very long time. It just is becoming more cool, like you said. And I think when talking about AI, we should split it into all of its categories. The first one of like what we do, right? Like what we do is statistical AI. We predict your cost, but there's a lot of different things that could be happening on that sort of like prediction AI, like what appointment you should be picking to get the optimal cost, what and so forth, right? There quite a bit of like statistical analysis, and I think that world is just going to keep growing, and not only enable better customer relationship, is that you'll be empowered with better, faster data at your fingertips. So it's one side. Then you've got on the other side all the LLMs. The LLMs are like your chat GPTs and all this stuff that like create text and creates interaction. You've got the voice one, and you've got the written one. Some that will generate automated email, some that will generate phone calls. I think that's I don't know that I have a firm opinion. I don't think anybody like will die on its sword that like this is the way the world is going right now, because I do think it'll create some advantages but some disadvantages. AI is not smart. AI only does what you tell it to do, nothing else, nothing more. Right? And it will not like be great at creating a relationship and a rapport. Right? Like that's what humans do. That's what we're good at. There's this quote that I'm gonna butcher, but I'd love AI to help me like do the dishes and not write art, because I like to write art and not do the dishes, right? Like, but right now the world is shifting a little bit more and more towards like helping with art and not the manual tasks that need to happen. And I think they're going to be a course correct eventually to take care of the task that needs to happen versus the relationship and the art behind it.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I agree with that. That's a good way to look at it. I think one of the things that's happened in the last few years, and I've talked about this a couple of times, is especially during and after COVID, people seem to relegate relationships to technology. And I don't see that as having gone particularly well. What I've seen within the BCS and the Broker Carrier Summit movement is people have swung all the way back, or nearly all the way back, to really craving actual personal and interpersonal relationships. And so I'm curious to see what role tech plays in the future. I definitely think there is a role.
Yeah,
But
I mean, so when we were a broker, we were as tech advanced as there is. Right? We had all the tech that we want. We had account manager calling their customer on a daily basis. We had our carrier team calling their carriers and their drivers on it like all the time. Because no matter how many tech we built, and like I'm the one that was very heavy, like push the tech. I also strongly believe that relationship, especially in our industry, matter more than anything. And you need to cultivate that and not kill it with tech. You need the tech to enable the relationship. For instance, if you get a phone call from a customer that asking you about like, hey, what's going on with that shipment, you should be able to tell them right away, even if you don't know, because the system should know, hey, that's the phone number. They're probably calling about this shipment. here's the last stuff that happened on the shipment. This is what, like, if they ask this question, this is what you say. Right? Like, all that should be done, but they should be picking up the phone. How are your kids? Oh yeah, the shipment. Yes, this is what happened right away. Right? The tech's there to enable the conversation, but the conversation happened by a human.
Yeah, and I think that's key too. One of the questions I was wanting to ask was, how can tech companies, or how can AI, how can those companies enhance the relationship piece? And I think what you're alluding to is the relationship between the two people still needs to happen, right? But the behind the scenes work can all be done, or at least the majority of it be done through technology.
Yeah, I mean, a silly example of our belief is we called our platform Stark internally, and the only reason we called it Stark is like it's after Tony Stark for like we told everybody we're building the Iron Man suit. I want somebody in the suit to control the suit and make the decisions and create the relationship. But we're building you a suit so you can do what what 1,000 person do in like an hour. You can do like in a minute. That's why we're building.
Wow. So do you guys have, please tell me you have a Transfix Iron Man suit in the office somewhere.
So we do not. So I went very far into our Marvel trend. And eventually the whole team told me to stop. So we did not. I don't think we will. But that is a very good idea. I will be.
It would be just so awesome if you were to walk into the next conference you went to in a freaking Iron Man suit.
In a suit,
I would pay money to see that.
Oh yeah, now I can hear my team like starting to like set this up. Now the moment I'm in the soup is.
Hey, can we make that happen before the Broker Carrier Summit?
No.
You can you can do the panel in.
Oh my God! If I'll do the panel in the suit. Oh my God!
I'm gonna call Jenny and be like, hey, make this happen.
Make this happen. Oh God! What have I done?
That's so funny. So talk to us about your team. So how many are on your team now?
We've got about 50 people. Okay. Most we've got like the majority are engineer and data science. Data scientist.
Okay. And you guys are spread out all over. You don't have a central office. You're all remote.
No, we don't. We don't even have an office. Since COVID. So when COVID hit, a lot of our engineering team moved, and we have a very large, like our long tenure, or our average is like really long for startups. I think we have about like our average is 7 years or something like that. And the reason is because when they moved from COVID, we've allowed everybody to stay remote, not come back. That's still the case. They're still very far away from New York. And there's no reason for us to bring people back. Going back to like my philosophy about like just the culture of the company, and you should let people do what they want as long as production is high, performance is high. Let's make people happy, and we have good work-life balance. And so we've never had an office back. We had one in Atlanta, and we had one in New York for like the core team, the operation team back when we were a broker. But as a SaaS company, as a tech company, we're doing great without one.
Yeah, that's one of the things we told our team when I ran the brokerage, is that I don't care how many hours a week it takes. It could take you 10 hours a week to get the job done. It could take you 100 hours a week to get the job done. As long as the job gets done, I don't care where you work. I don't care what, the conditions under what you do it. I just as long as the job gets done, then we're good. Then we're fine. I like that
exactly
mentality.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, and one of the things I found is that people, when you give them the freedom to do that, they actually, one, they do a better job, and two, they enjoy what they are doing better because they have a more complete sense of ownership over what they're doing. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah, I think so. I think that freedom and that flexibility creates a lot of a lot of benefit both ways. It's also there's a couple of things. On one hand, I like the performance driven aspect of a company. I think even if we had an office, that's how we behave, right? It's performance driven. It's based on result, based on what you do, not how long you do it, or not. Obviously, everything has deadline. You get to match it, but like it's easy to quantify results in many ways. On the other side, like I do miss like interaction and whiteboarding and like a problem appears and like I'll grab a couple people, go in a room and hash it out. I miss those interaction, but as long as like you've got like good tools like Slack and others and good communications and the right culture, I much prefer. I don't see, at least myself, I don't see myself going back to an office ever.
Yeah,
It'll be really tough.
yeah. So as a leader, not just in the business world, but in the freight world specifically, what do you value as a leader? What are some of the core leadership principles that you run your life by, and what you run Transfix by?
That's a tough one. I don't know. Like the first one that comes to mind is just transparency. I'm just transparent to a fault, probably. But whether it's like to personally to my wife, to my kids, or to somebody that works at Transfix, or anybody in general, any partners we have, any customers, I'm just transparent to like I'm just fully transparent, fully honest. If there's a feature that somebody asked for that we don't do, I'll just say we don't do it. I don't see any. It sounds trivial, but on a day to day, when big things come up, sometimes it's harder to actually do and obey that than it seems. But I found that it's just an easier way to be as a human. So transparency is big. Don't be a jerk. Like it sounds stupid, but it is.
It's true.
Like, life is
Nobody
too
likes
short.
to work with jerks.
Life is just too short, like to fight and to argue and to. I make mistake. I'm gonna make mistake. I'm gonna say I'm sorry. Let's move on, right? Like I ask my wife. she's very used to me messing up. But yeah, like it's just it's mostly I want to take for myself and for everyone. I want to take the work that I do very, very seriously because I believe it matters. I believe it has an impact. I believe it helps ultimately help people. But I don't want to take myself seriously ever or take anything too seriously. It's a little bit around that. I don't know what else.
I think we're moving into an era where, and I'm not sure if this is entirely new. It's new. It's new to me. I think we're moving into an era, not just in the freight industry, but in the American economy as a whole, where leaders in the business world and their teams are prizing authenticity more than they previously have.
That's great.
From all the conversations that we've had with both within the BCS and with industry wide with our partners and with our sponsors, people are just looking to interact with real people in real time, and that's not always been the case. So that's kind of exciting in my mind.
Oh, that's great. That's great to hear. I don't hear like it's not that like I don't really have a strong sense of what's happening outside. But it's great to hear that that's where the community is moving because it's not always easy. Right? Like there's a lot of things that happens that like it'd be easier to keep to yourself, but I don't know, transparency, honesty, reliability, like that's it. The other one, I like to work. I'm a little bit of a workaholic. I work all the time, but I really pride myself into like there's nothing I won't do. Doesn't matter how hard it is, how long it'll take. I like to work really, really hard, and I think work ethic is another thing that matters a lot. If you say you're going to do something, it gets done. Just like you said, I don't care if it's like 100 hours, 1,000 hours, and you have to do it in one day. Like it's not.
Yeah, just get it done.
If you say, just get it, just get it done. Just move fast. That's the other one. Move really fast. It feels like a weird climate to say this right now, but I like to move really fast, break things, and fix them. Like if I talk about this concept of there's the one-way door decision, or it's an Amazon concept to be fair, but a one-way door decision versus a two-way. There's a two-way door. If it's a two-way door, you make the decision, but you can roll it back. If you make a mistake, you can always come back. If it's a one-way, there's no going back from this decision. If it's a two-way door, I move really fast. Like I'll break things, and then I'll have my team has to like fix it up. The one-way door needs to be more polished.
Yeah, my wife hates it when I say this, but because it doesn't really work in family as much as it works in business.
Nope.
I always tell her, I'm like, I was a C student. A- work is good enough. So if we do 92%, we can move fast and we can fix the mistakes along the way. Great for business, not great for like raising kids and making personal decisions.
Especially, my wife will agree with your wife, very much. But B+ today is always better than an A tomorrow, except when it's a math test of your 8-year-old.
That didn't. There's many reasons why Dad doesn't help with homework. Just get it done. A B is fine.
That's why wives.
Cool.
My wife has tremendous patience around this. It's great all around. But yeah,
very cool. Well, what's next for you guys? Where are you going to be the rest of the quarter? Are you guys going to be at TIA?
I believe so. Yeah, our team's going to TIA. I'm going to Broker Carrier Summit with some of my team. There's a lot of conference. We have to. It's funny because we used to go to all those conferences as a broker, so all of our notes are just like, oh, this is great for shippers. There's a lot of shipper there, but we never wrote like, oh, there's a lot of broker there. So now that we're changing our customer profile, we have to rethink how conference work for us. So we'll try. We'll figure it out. We have. I know we have Carly, Thomas, Drew, and Brent going to TIA. We're sending 4 people, but the rest of the year, we found what we want to do. Right, we want to focus on pricing, help broker making the right data-driven decision when it comes to cost and pricing. We have all the tools, and now it's a matter of going to market, finding brokers. I keep saying shippers. Finding brokers. It's force of habit. Finding brokers and growing this business.
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that because I left the brokerage world last June to focus 100% on Broker Carrier Summit. And I went to Food Shippers last week, and it was completely weird to me because I wasn't talking to I didn't care about the shippers. I could leave them to the brokers, and I get asked by a number of brokers, like, why are you here? Like, you're not selling to them. So, no, I'm here for you guys. Like, you're my customers now. You're my people, my members. Yeah. So it was a weird transition. And I'll make a confession too. So like when your team reached out and wanted to sponsor, I was like, oh great, Transfix is going to be a sponsor. We got our first major broker sponsoring the Broker Carrier Summit. And I looked at the website like, damn it, they're not a broker anymore. So. Yep.
One day you'll get the broker, I'm sure.
We'll get it.
Yep. That's where we're going. Just keep doing what we're doing, enjoying it while we can, and that's it.
Fantastic. Well, Jonathan, it was great talking to you, my friend. I hope to see you soon. Definitely going to see you at Broker Carrier Summit here at the end of April. And thank you for coming on the show. And I wish you guys all the best of luck.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.